Hi, today I'm going to show you my daughter's Sonlight instruction guides for her third grade curriculum. She's doing the Sonlight B, Intro to World History, HBL. The HBL stands for History, Bible, and Literature. She's also doing the grade 3 Language Arts and Sonlight Science B. So when I ordered the guides, it's quite a stack of paper. It's very thick. And so this is a large binder that I ordered from Sonlight as well to store them in. This is really heavy duty, good quality. And it comes with all the tabs for the weeks and the appendices. But taking this out to use on a daily basis can get really cumbersome. And so I use this only to store my current IG the current IGs that we're working with for each child. What I use on a regular daily basis is I purchased a better binder from Staples. This was about $10, I think. And this is a 1.5 inch. And so I'll keep like 4 or 5 weeks at a time into here in this binder. I'll also, any other instruction sheets or appendices information, information that I want to be able to look at, on a regular basis, I'll keep on here. In the beginning here, there's this nice plastic case folder thing that they have, and I'll use this to store the timeline figures in. Every year when you purchase an HBL, they'll give you the timeline figures for that corresponding for that study. I believe this is from levels A through F. In high school cores, they want you to start writing in instead of using pictures. So with your timeline figures, you have your timeline book that you get, and this is where you put all of your pictures. Now this is my daughter's. We only started this for like first grade, so there's not very much in there. So there's just a few in here. But as the years go on, she'll be adding to it. So you just have one book per child, and you use it all the way up through elementary, middle school. You could probably even use it into high school as well, if there's still room to write stuff, because some pages can get to be really full. But this is really nice addition. I like to use this. And then I have a folder, and I'll use this to keep all of her language arts worksheets, science worksheets, handwriting worksheets, any kind of worksheets that she's doing, I'll store it in here. And then you get a laminated map with your HBL. And this goes along with your history studies. So for instance, if you're going along and you're reading a book, and maybe you're going to talk about the book setting is in Sweden, and your instructor guides will show you, they'll tell you when to use the map. So it'll say, like, here's your letters on one side, the numbers on the other, and it'll say B6. And so you'll go to B6, and that'll be Sweden. And so you can give this map to your child, and you can say, okay, let's find Sweden, look under B6, and then they can find it. And then they can see where it is in connection with other countries and continents. Now, if you want to further their study with geography, you can use the markable map from Sonlight. This is really a great tool. So this is actually quite large. I can't undo the whole thing here. It's about 6 of these squares. One side is USA, the other side is a world map. And you can use these dry erase markers, or wet erase markers, wet erase markers. Wet erase markers won't smudge unless you use like a wet paper towel and clean them off. So you can be adding to your markable map all year and not have to worry about it getting messed up. So here again, back to Sweden. If you're studying Sweden, they can first find it on this laminated map, and then you can have them put it on the markable map. And again, it doesn't smudge. Like, this is something that my daughter drew like a year ago, and it's still there. That's her uncle's house, who lives in Minnesota. That's what she drew. So my kids have actually had a lot of fun just playing with these markable maps too throughout the years. My children each have one. Okay, so now we get into the instructor guide. This is the history cover for the instructor guide for the HBL. And if you notice here, it says 4-day. Right now, this year, Sonlight's offering a 4-day or a 5-day option for all their levels from A to F. I don't know if they're going to be making 4-day options for like G and H and W in high school. They might, I don't know, but for now they do have a 4-day option, and this is what we're choosing to use. We've used the 5-day option a lot in the past, and it gets to be a lot of books and just too time consuming sometimes. So I'm really excited about using the 4-day option. So the 4-day option is less books. Last year they had a 4-day option, but all it did was take all those books and like smoosh them down into 4 days. But this is actually a real 4-day schedule where you're actually getting less books. I know some people absolutely can't stand that, but you can order the rest of the books if you want, and then read them during the summer. But that just never works for us. So 4-day is really what our family needs. So you'll have some information in the beginning of your instructor guide. And here's the book list. I really like the book list. This will give you all the books that you're doing for the HBL, all the Bible. Here's all the history books you'll be reading, and here's all the read aloud books you'll be reading. I like to go through this and take out books that we're not going to use. So for instance, here, Charlotte's Web, we've already read this book. So I just crossed it off and I put in Alice in Wonderland. Catching Their Talk in a Box is a book that our family is choosing not to read, and so I crossed it off and I'm going to read Family Under the Bridge. That was a book that we missed with our Core A last year. And then here, Greek Myths, I crossed it off. I don't know what I'm going to substitute with. She's actually already read this book. When I purchased all the books at the beginning of the summer, she just picked up that book and she started reading it, and she read the whole thing. And she loves it. I'm not really a big fan of Greek stories. They're just not very interesting to me. They're kind of depressing. But she really loved that book. So I'm going to have to figure out something to substitute it. So when I do figure out something, I will just write it in there. And here's the cover for the instructor's guide. And again, I've chosen the 4-day. And there is a book list for this as well. So right now, this year we're going to be reading all of these books. But in future years, especially as they get older, sometimes I do substitute out. And so I will just cross off and write in what we're going to use instead. And they also give you some basic information. Here's the science cover. I really like this cover. I think that's pretty. And again, we're using the 4-day. And here's some basic information to read through before you start teaching. And here's their book list. And this is their science supplies. So you can buy a science supplies kit from them, and these will be all the stuff that you will get. And then these are the weeks that those supplies are used. So that's a handy chart. And for some of your worksheets for science, they're going to be cut and paste, especially for the earlier grades. And so these are all the cutout sheets. And so I'll just keep these in the front. So this is just some basic information that I like to keep in front of my guide. So I have easy access to it, and I can read the information if I ever want to think that I need to do that. So I'm going to skip over here to week 4 because my first few weeks have a lot of pencil marks in there. I do a lot of penciling and highlighting. So week 4 is still pretty clean. So here we have the language arts. Now I like to put my language arts at the beginning of our week. So here we have the tab for week 4, and here's the beginning of my week. And so I start, because I like to start with language arts in the morning. Language arts and math I like to get done right away in the morning. So here's spelling. Then there's some kind of activity for phonics, and here's the phonics workbook. So this is spelling and phonics section right here, and the phonics workbook is optional. You don't have to do that. And then for spelling, they give you these 4 days of assignments. We usually do our own thing. You can just follow the instructions that they give. They'll give you like 10 words a week, and you can do those instructions for spelling. Now, spelling, they include in your language arts for grades 1, 2, 3, and the 4, 5 level. Once you start Core D, the language arts doesn't include spelling, and you choose your own spelling. I think they give you a choice between Spelling UC or All About Spelling, or whatever spelling program you want, if you want a different one. Then they have handwriting, and again, you choose your own book for that. We use A Reason for handwriting. I really like Reason for handwriting. I've used it for all my kids. I like the simplicity of it. There's day 1, you write some letters and some words. Day 2, and here you have day 3, and then day 4 is where you write a Bible verse. And then in the back here, you can choose, different pages for writing the Bible verse. So I really like this program. And so she's not ready to do cursive. We're still going to do manuscript for this year, and hopefully next year we'll get to cursive. For this phonics, I am going to do the phonics with her this year. I just think that she needs a little more practice. And so this is the phonics workbook that Sonlight suggests. And it looks like it's just going to cover a lot of basics. Consonants, short and long vowels. I mean, it looks like it really just covers kind of everything. And I think she just really needs that. She does well with her reading, but I gave her an assessment on phonics, and I guess she had a lot of gaps or holes. I know you can't cover all gaps and all holes, but I just wanted to give her a little extra phonics. Then these are the readers. These are the books that the children read on their own. You don't read these out loud to them. And then vocabulary development. This is an optional book. Worldly Wise is a workbook, and I did purchase it, but I'm not sure if I'm going to use it. Sometimes these vocabulary books can really get to be just extra busy work, and sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's not. So I purchased it just because I'm not sure. I mean, it's a fine workbook. Here's a word list that they give you, and then there's some kind of worksheets to do. This is a true and false that you would do one day, and then the next day, I suppose, next time you do hidden message, and then a crossword puzzle. So it's a fine workbook, but again, sometimes it just gets to be too much busy work. So it really depends upon how much time we have. I do notice that all the years that we've been using Sonlight, we've been homeschooling for, I think, 15 years. We've been doing it since 2001. So, and reading just lots of books and having my children read lots of books. I'm reading lots of books to them. They seem to do really well with vocabulary. Every time I've given them a standardized test, they always exceed on vocabulary. And we don't use the workbooks very much. So I do think vocabulary can be done with just reading. But sometimes maybe you want to have a workbook. Maybe you want to have them doing something productive, while you're doing something else. And then here we have creative expression. Now, Sonlight calls it creative expression, but it's not just creative writing. You're learning how to write paragraphs and essays and everything. They just call it creative expression. And there's 4 assignments. There's a copy work. Then copy work application is sort of like a grammar usage kind of worksheet where you actually look at the sentence and sentence structure and all that kind of information. And then there will be a writing assignment. For this week, it's writing with the diamond notes. Diamond notes is something specific to the grade 3 language arts. It's what they use to help teach kids to do paragraphs. They use a baseball graphic, to show how to organize your paragraph. And then here you're writing a paragraph. So basically, it's always going to be copy work application, and then writing. I'm not sure what the 5th day would have, but you can go online and look at samples of what their 5th day is. They have really good samples of everything here. So here, after you look at the schedule, here's all the information that you need for teaching. So it'll begin with spelling, and it'll give you everything that you need for spelling that week. Here's telling you the rule that you'll be learning. Here's the words. Here's some any information for teaching it. And here's the activity that you would do. Now, I don't follow what they do. Here I showed you before, they have, what we do is on the first day, I will write all the words out on a whiteboard and we'll talk about the rule. And then the second, third, and fourth day, I'm just going to have my child write a few words. I'll ask them to write a word, or I'll write a word and have them copy it. So essentially, we just spend 5 minutes just going through some of the words. Sometimes, some days we'll do 2 words, some days we'll do 5. We very rarely do all 10 in one day, except for that first day where I'm writing the word and talking about the rule. Otherwise, the rest of the days, we're just doing a few words at a time. So we basically just spend the week working on those words. And then I do the write a sentence, the optional write a sentence at the last day. So I don't do any testing. So that's how I use their spelling. And we will do the activity sometimes. Depends on what the activity is. So here it's going to have the answers for the phonics workbook. And here's a creative expression. Here's the copy work. They give you an extra copy work assignment. Here's the copy work application. It talks about how you can teach that page. And then here's the writing, your writing assignments using the diamond notes. And so it just gives you instructions on each day. So that's really helpful. And then here is the weekly activity sheet. Here's your copy work. Here's your copy work application. And then here are the diamond notes. And this again is just for the Language Arts 3. I think you can buy the diamond notes separately. So here's just, it tells you how to use it. So essentially what they're doing with the diamond notes is here they have this graphic. It's a pitcher's mound. So here is the pitcher's mound. Here's home base, first, second, third. So pitcher's mound will be your main idea. These will be your 3 sentences. And then home plate would be like your concluding sentence. So it's just a way of trying to teach children how to write a paragraph, how to organize a paragraph. So now I use these dividers. You can get, this is, I believe, Avery. I got it from the Avery brand. I got it from Staples. And I use this to divide my subjects in my instructor guide. So here I'm going to start the HBL, History, Bible, Literature. So for the History, Bible, Literature, it starts with Bible, History and Geography, and read alouds. And up here it'll tell you which week you're on. This is week 4, and you can put in your own date if you wish to do that. So for Bible, usually every year for Bible, there will be some sort of a faith book. That's just what I call them, faith book, Bible reading, a Bible memorization, and they'll always include some kind of a hymn or music, Christian music kind of CD. We don't really use that. We don't use that. We're Eastern Orthodox Christian family, so I usually choose different Bible books. But sometimes I will do the Bible reading and the Bible memorization. So I'll either just cross this off and write in what we're going to be doing. This year I'm actually thinking about using some whiteout. I found this whiteout. It's like a tape dispenser, kind of like a craft tape dispenser of whiteout instead of that liquid stuff. That liquid stuff is so messy and doesn't always work very good. This works pretty good. It's a little tricky to use, but I was pretty happy with it. Now, of course, if you're going to resell these guides, that probably wouldn't be such a good idea. So I'm not sure. Or you can also use washi tape and just, sometimes you have to be careful which washi tape you use. Sometimes you can't write over the washi tape. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I'm going to be substituting the Bible books. And I'm just not sure how I'm going to put it into my guide yet. And then for history, geography, there will be the books that you're reading. And, I did the 4-day schedule, so it's just 4. And then here's the read alouds, and then the poetry book. So usually every year, Sonlight has some sort of a poetry book. Even into high school, they have a poetry book. And this book in particular, National Geographic Book of Animal Poetry, is a really beautiful book. It's got great pictures. So I really like this poetry book. And we've already read Charlotte's Web, like I mentioned before, so I'm just going to pencil it out, and I will put in my book, and I'll choose like which chapters we're going to read each day. And again, I think that's where this whiteout might come in handy, is to just white it out. Or you can just cross it off with pencil. That's what I've always done in the past. But I just want to try something different. But, you know, it's just if I usually do resell my books at least. So I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. So then here it's going to give you some information on the Bible book you're going to be reading. Here is the Bible verse that you're going to be memorizing. And here's some of the history. Here's the Usborne Book of World History. They'll give you notes and discussion questions. Here you're going to be reading Tut's Mummy Lost and Found, so it's telling you different discussion questions. And here is where they'll give you the timeline and map points. So there's no mapping points, but there is a timeline figure. Now, a lot of times I'll come through with my highlighter. This is why I don't always sell my guide, because I need to be able to use it to teach. I need to be able to highlight in my guide. I need to be able to white out. I need to be able to just work in my guide when I'm teaching. So I really so reselling my guides just doesn't work. But sometimes I can sell my books. So here I will highlight this to make it stand out a little bit. Or the discussion questions, I'll kind of highlight it. I know one year I used different colors, like history was green, and I would use different colors so I could tell. But I just need to be able to write in and use my guide. So now here I have another divider for science. So here the science week is going to work like this. You're going to have your book and your activity sheet questions. There's usually 1 or 2 questions. This is not pages, that's just questions. So you're going to read a couple pages and you're going to have like 2 questions. And then there will be a couple activities to do that week. And then there's also an experiment. So one thing that's really great about Sonlight Science is it's very active learning. They'll do anywhere from 2 to 3 or more activities a week. So you'll have these 2 optional activities, and then you'll have the DVD experiment. And here, this science activities book, usually that's just reiterating what's on the DVD. And then you'll have an activity question that has to do with your experiment that you did. And then here it's going to tell you all the supplies that you need. And here it even gives you a heads up on what you're going to need next week. So you can be thinking if you have these things, and you can make a note on your grocery list or shopping list that you have to pick up something. So here you're going to have some information about the books, about your reading. For the World Animals book that you'll be reading. Here's for information about what sort of activity that you're going to be doing. And then you'll also have the answers for the worksheets. And so here's the worksheets. They're not colored, but you can have your child color them. But I really like the worksheets. I like that they have large font. It makes it easy to read for small kids. And I actually like the black and white. So your kids can color and circle and doodle with them. But I guess if they were colored, I probably wouldn't mind that either. So there's 2 worksheets that week. Some weeks you're going to have maybe 1, some 2, some 3. It just depends. So that's the end of the week. That's what a week looks like for history, Bible, literature, language arts, and science. And if you have extra things that you're studying, there's usually on the HBL page, there's usually 2 more places here. So if you're doing art, or if you're not using their science, then you'll have, you can do a science here. Like this year, we're actually thinking about adding in Apologia, Exploring Creation. And my daughter really likes the botany. She wanted to study botany. So we started a little bit of it last year. So now the only problem I'm going to have is how to combine. Normally I don't ever combine 2 science programs because science, or the Sonlight science, really is enough. So, but she really wants to study botany. She wants to study that book, wants to really go in depth with it. So I'm thinking that this year we might have to just forego these activities and experiments and just read the books and do the activity questions. And all of our activities and experiments are going to come from the Apologia Botany book. So again, normally I would never double up on science like this. But I think for this year, that might be what we end up doing because there's no way to do both of them fully. So here you get to the appendices. Section 3, this will be read alouds. So after your HBL guide, the schedule, it showed you all the information you needed to teach Bible and history. But the read aloud information is not there. The read aloud information is separate. So here's your book list. And I think the reason they do this, they've gone back and forth. Sometimes they'll put the read aloud information behind the weekly schedule, and then sometimes they have this different section. And I think a lot of parents, more parents, prefer it this way because a lot of times they're reading ahead in read alouds and in the readers' books, for the kids. And so they like to be able to just take out, okay, we're reading Charlotte's Web, just take it out and put it in whatever week they're working on. So with the read alouds, there'll be, this will be a couple pages for each book. Depends upon how big the book is. But it'll have an explanation of the book. It'll have some vocabulary words and some discussion questions. And there also might be some timeline and map points as well. So here's some vocabulary words. Again, for each daily assignment of reading, there's going to be this vocabulary, discussion questions, and there might be some timeline or mapping points. So sometimes what I do with these vocabulary words is I have this book. I got this at bearbooks.com. It's a hardcovered blank page here. And so I'll just choose a couple words and we'll write the word down, write the definition, and then we'll go to Google Image and get a picture and cut it out and cut and paste. Now my daughter seems to really like this, but you can do other vocabulary notebooking as well, but I don't do it for all the words and we don't do it all the time. So like for chapter 6, there's like 6 words. I just would not do it for all of them. I'd probably pick 1 or 2. I don't think I'd ever do more than 2 a day. Maybe even only like 3 or 4 for the whole week. And a lot of times we'll just talk about them. And sometimes we don't even talk about them. Sometimes we're just following the schedule and just reading the chapter or the next chapter. And that's all we're doing. It just depends how the week is going. So then you have the readers. And this is the same thing as the read alouds. You'll have your book list. And for each reading assignment, you're going to have discussion questions. Here's more discussion questions. I don't really see a lot of vocabulary or mapping or anything like that. There's a vocabulary word. So sometimes there's just not going to be a lot of stuff. Sometimes it's just basically discussion questions. And you don't even have to use discussion questions in here. If you find it really easy to just talk about a book, then you really don't even need to do these discussion questions. This is just sort of a help to parents who maybe need a little extra help talking about the books with their kids. But maybe your kid is you just sort of ask them, so what did you read today? What happened in your story? And that would be enough. So then we have the section 4, and this is going to be scope and sequence. And again, you can see this online. They have the scope and sequence for each of the guides, each of their levels online. And I like to look at this a lot. It helps me to know what we're going to be studying that year. And there will be scope and sequence for, this is your language arts. And then also, this is sort of a scope and sequence for the science. It's just a weekly subject list. So each week you're talking about, it tells you what you're talking about. So for the first like 17 weeks here, you're talking about animals. Then you're talking about the body. And then you're talking about space. So those are the 3 subjects that are covered this year. And here's a timeline figure. And diamond notes. And again, this is just for Language Arts 3. And it gives you all the instructions on how to use the diamond notes. And then they have a glossary of phonics rules, spelling guidelines, and here's a Language Arts checkoff sheet for like 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. Just some basic, I really like these skills checkoff. It's just a basic, you know, to kind of see where your kid is at and what sort of things maybe you need to work on that you hadn't thought of before. And these are also some learning skills that you can go through and see how your child is doing with that. So that is how I have my Sonlight guide set up. And this is basically the format I use all through A through F, or A through W, I should say. High school is different. And I do plan to do a video on our high school. I do have a high schooler this year. He's doing the modern history. And we're going to be doing the literature, a different literature. So I am going to do a video on how I set up my high school. That's actually 2 guides. It's a parent guide and a student guide. So I hope that this was helpful. Thank you for watching, and God bless your day.